Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another field strip video. And in today's field strip we're going to be taking apart for cleaning and maintenance the Ruger PC Carbine. I recently took this to the range and filmed a range report review on it, and now it's time to clean this up. I also want to apologize for having the camera so close to the gun, but I want to show you all of the details of this field strip, and if I had the camera back far enough to see the whole gun at once, you might miss some of them. So we'll start by dropping the magazine, ensuring that there is no ammunition in it. We can set that aside. Then we will turn the gun over and visually inspect the chamber, and it looks like we are clear. Now, because this is a takedown model, the first thing we want to do is take the barrel off. And the way that you take the barrel off essentially is we're going to lock the bolt back so you can pull it back with the charging handle. And there's a lever below the receiver. You can push that in and it will hold the bolt back. Now we can go to the front of the gun and we can see a little lever here underneath the barrel. We are going to push that towards the front, and then the barrel will simply rotate off and we can pull it out of the receiver. And that is our barrel section. Now we can take the handguard off of this, and all you need is the appropriate sized Allen wrench. There's one screw on the bottom of the handguard. We can take this off. The screw is retained in the handguard, but once it comes out far enough, you can take the handguard off. Then of course we can set that aside. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the receiver and we are going to gently close the bolt to take the pressure off of the recoil spring. And now we're going to get the receiver out of the stock. And there are also two more screws here, and just like the handguard on the front, we can remove these, and they are both retained inside of the stock as well. So let's take these out. Once those are out far enough, you can then remove the receiver with the trigger group from the stock, and here is the stock, and this allows you to get down in here and clean the mag well. We can now set the stock aside. Now when it comes to the receiver, the first thing we're going to do is take off the charging handle, and you're going to use that same Allen wrench. And this screw is not retained, so once you get it out far enough, the charging handle will come out and you can take the screw out. And once again, you can set that aside. The next thing we need to do is remove the trigger group. And this comes apart just like a Ruger 1022. We have two pins, one right here, one right here. They're exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which order you take them out in. You don't have to mark them, and they come right out. Then we can drop the trigger group out of the receiver and of course set that aside. So now we need to get the bolt out of the receiver. So we'll go to the underside of the receiver. You can see the bolt here, the recoil spring, and there's a little pad on the back. And so what we're going to do is we're going to lift up on this, and then the whole bolt assembly comes right out of the receiver. And there's our upper receiver, and that can get really, really dirty. Set that aside as well. Now we can pull out the recoil spring assembly from the top of the bolt. And now the next thing we need to do is get the extractor out. And the extractor is held in place by this pin right here. You see three pins on the top. The smaller one holds in the extractor. So what you have to do is push in the extractor, and with a punch on the bottom, you push through that pin while putting pressure on that extractor, and it will pop out. And then you can take out the extractor and the extractor spring. And now we need to get the bolt face off of this. And once again, we have two more pins, and all you have to do is push that bolt face in towards the receiver and turn the bolt upside down. Those pins should just pop out. They might be stuck in there a little bit depending on how much you used the gun, and we got both of them out pretty easy. Now we can pull out the bolt face, which now allows us to take out the firing pin spring and the firing pin, and those two can be separate. So there's the spring and the firing pin. And now we have to get out the little weight which is in the bolt, and that helps of course with the cycling of the gun because this is a direct blowback firearm. And there's the weight, and there is your completely stripped bolt. So that is how you disassemble a Ruger PC Carbine. It's a little bit more involved than many other guns you might own, but it's relatively easy. It looks way more complicated than what you think it would be, but you do have a lot of parts you have to keep track of. So let me clean this gun up, and then let's put it back together. So we have this Ruger PC Carbine all cleaned up and ready to go back together, and I realized that there was one thing I forgot to show you about the stock. If you want to clean the mag well or take it out and replace it, if you want to go between using Glock mags and Ruger SR9 mags, once the receiver is out of the stock, all you have to do is push the magazine release button and hold it, and you can pull out the whole mag well. That is very convenient and very easy to use. All right, so let's start putting this gun back together, and we are going to start with the bolt. We're first going to need the weight. The weight has two sides with various numbers of holes on it. You want to make sure the side with the fewer number of holes is the one you can see when you insert it into the bolt, because that will align everything when it comes to the firing pin. Now let's install the firing pin through the front. If it only goes in that far, you need to adjust the weight a little bit, and all you got to do is just kind of move the firing pin around, and eventually everything should line up. It should go in about that far. Now we can install the firing pin spring. Now let's grab the bolt head and these two very short pins, and we will install the bolt head by making sure the extractor channel lines up with the extractor channel on the bolt. We will then compress the bolt against the firing pin spring, and once it's all the way in, you can take these little pins and simply drop them in, and that will retain the bolt head. Now we have to install the extractor. So on this side we have the hole for the extractor spring. We can put on the extractor. We will need to compress it with our fingers. Once that hole is lined up, through the top of the bolt we can put in the extractor pin. Now that is back together. We can take our recoil spring assembly, simply slide it on through the top. Now we'll get the receiver, and essentially we're going to install it this way. So the recoil spring will be towards the top of the receiver, but for this demonstration I'm going to turn it upside down. It's just easier to do this way. I will then put in the bolt, slide it in, and then once you get to this point you compress the recoil spring and the whole mechanism will go down into the receiver. Now we're going to need to install the charging handle, and you can decide which side you want. I'm going to put it back on the left-hand side. So we'll take our charging handle and we'll put the screw through it. I'll put it onto the bolt, and then I'll get my Allen wrench that I used earlier for disassembly and simply tighten this down. Once it's tight, you're good to go. It doesn't have to be over tight. Now we're going to install the trigger pack, and it does not matter which pin you use, they're both the same. Simply put the trigger pack on the bottom part of the receiver. You may have to move it around to align, especially the back hole, and you might hear a little pop when it goes in where it's supposed to. And then once it's aligned, you can simply take these pins and just push them through. They should be really easy to install. And now we have the receiver with the trigger pack in it. And so now it's time to put it onto the stock. So let's grab the stock and we'll put this in through the top. And then once it's in there, it pretty much aligns everything. Then we'll go to the bottom of the receiver, go back to the screws, and simply tighten these down. There's one in the front and one in the back. And then once those are tightened down, we're ready to put the barrel assembly back together. So we'll take our handguard and we'll put it on where this little latch is going to go through the hole in the rear of it. And that should pretty much line everything up. And then we'll take that Allen wrench once more, tighten this screw down. And then once that is tightened down, that's all back together. Then all you have to do is pull this bolt back, lock it back open, and then we can install the barrel by putting it in at an angle, and when the lugs line up, you can push it all the way in, then rotate it back down, then you can release the bolt, and then of course insert the magazine, and then we will safety check the firearm again, and of course make sure that the bolt holds back. And it looks like we are good. Pull the mag out, pull the trigger, and we are good. So that is how you disassemble and reassemble for cleaning and maintenance the Ruger PC Carbine. So I hope this video helps somebody in the future. So, as always, thanks for watching.